Hello, everyone. Lawrence Fleming here. I'm looking at that nice, beautiful, warm background. I am inside my tent because it's still close to freezing, if not below freezing still, and I'm cold. So the bluish color, I think, is appropriate. Anyhow, I would love to be there again, but right now I'm in Georgia camping. You all know that. Today was a good day. I went to church. It's Sunday as I'm recording this. I've already been to church, so I'm early afternoon. Today's the first day of spring, I believe. Someone please tell the God of weather. We know who that God is. There's only one God. But it's the normal cycle of things, so we got to go through that. And we're not part of this. We don't live here. We're visiting, so we can't come in and dictate. Okay. Where you see that big, bright gold top there, that is the Dome of the Rock, as it's called. It has a Muslim name, and I butcher it every time, so I'm going to go ahead and skip that. Can we get the temple of God built on the Temple Mount without going to war? And I have an argument that we can, but maybe not the way most people are thinking about it. But let's kind of look at the history of the temple. What we're looking at, because of the Dome of the Rock, we're not really seeing that's where the temple was. The temple was never in the city of David. Those that have thought that couldn't convince anybody, I don't think, maybe a few. But this is the mount that it was supposed to be on. The original temple was built during the reign of David's son, Solomon. Who's David? David and Goliath, that David. He is definitely one of God's chosen. But God told him, because you've been a man of war, you can't build the temple. So he let his son do that. I'm not going to get the wind sounds in here, but I am hearing my tent flutter as the wind's going. I've got my microphone out, but I don't think I need it in here. So we're going to do this without it. But I will carry it with me from now on when I go out, because the video before last was a little noisy because of the wind. But the tent is being buffeted by this cold, cold wind. All right, getting back to our subject. Enough squirrels. Solomon built the temple. He completed it about 957 BC. We're not doing before Common Era, and we're not doing Common Era. That's an attempt to eradicate Jesus. Okay, so we're going to use BC and AD, and Satan can have his time frame. In any case, it was built and used for a long time. The country of Israel divided itself. Quick history: Israel to the north, Judah to the south. Judah maintained the temple, and they continued doing what they needed to do. Israel didn't. They were conquered initially first. But eventually, as is the case with the Israelites throughout history, they get close to God and then they drift away. They drift away until they're punished. Then they come back to God and then slowly begin that cycle all over again. So Nebuchadnezzar from Babylon, king of Babylon, he conquered Jerusalem. Well, when he did, he heavily damaged, I won't say completely destroyed, but heavily damaged the temple. He carried some from Judah back to Babylon, killed a lot, banished a lot, but basically the temple sat in ruins for a long time, for 70 years to be precise. Then along comes king of Persia, Cyrus II. He conquers Babylon. just constantly back and forth. My land is your land, it's your land, it's my land, back and forth forever. And in 538 BC, he issued an order allowing the Jews to return to Jerusalem to go back and build their temple. He didn't care if they were far enough away. Okay. Understand that. Persia, Iran was far enough away. Okay. So they got the temple rebuilt around 515 BC. And it was built on the same spot, obviously. They just repaired it, put it back up. And we know the dimensions of it. Solomon was given the dimensions of how to build the temple. That wind's blowing. Sometimes it leaks in here and I can feel it. It's cold. Originally, the original size of the Temple Mount was built for Solomon's temple. Let's move forward in time now, and we've got Herod the Great, who wasn't a very good emissary for the Israelites, but he was appointed as an emissary between Rome and the Jews, the Israelites. His only claim is he just wanted to be known for his construction work. So he ordered the temple to be rebuilt, modernized, and enlarged. Okay, so the Temple Mount as we see it now is the size of the Herodian Mount that he enlarged. But we've found the cornerstones, or they have over there, the cornerstones of the original Temple Mount. So we know the size and we know where to place the temple because of that. And it's right where the Dome of the Rock is. And we're going to get to that in a second. But that temple was beautiful. You see in the first part of Matthew 24, the disciples walking with Jesus, heading to the Mount of Olives, look back and go, isn't that a beautiful temple? And that's where Jesus said, in 3 days, this temple will be destroyed, or this temple will be destroyed, not one rock standing upon another, and basically telling combination of their temple and his temple. The bottom line is it was destroyed, and not one stone was left on another. Jesus knew that before it happened, because in 70 AD, that's when it was fully destroyed. The Maccabees led a revolt against the Romans, and the Romans have been putting up with this for a long time, and they finally had it. And that's when they ordered the war against the Jews. They killed 1 million or more Jews. They exiled the rest, and some of them headed over to Masada and tried to hold up there. Herod had one of his temples built there in the lower sections of it. So it's a good, safe place, got a good view. They built a ramp to it and killed them all. We know that story. But anyhow, the Romans, when they kicked him out, renamed the land, renamed Israel Palestine. He didn't give it to anybody. He just renamed it in hopes that somebody would come in, take it over, and the Jews could never come back to the land. That was his plan. And it's worked pretty good for a long time. Okay. So continuing on here, what are we looking at? I want to read in Matthew 24:24. I need to read these verses so you've got them to look them up. And Jesus said unto them, see ye not all these things? Verily I say unto you. Whenever he says verily, that's basically pay attention. This is important. There shall not be left one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. The historians of the time said that basically in the fighting, the temple got set on fire. The stones don't burn, but all the tapestry that was inside did. And the tapestry had all this gold thread, real gold, and that melted into the rocks. So they threw the rocks down to get down below to get to the gold. Okay, now they claim that the Temple Mount belongs to the Arabs or the Muslims because Muhammad ascended to heaven from there. He went there to be part of the mosque and to talk to God, and then be ascended. It doesn't say all that. It basically says he went west. Okay. Keep in mind that Muhammad, his lifespan was from 570 AD to 632 AD. Remember that, 632. Okay, well, the Dome of the Rock shrine, and it is correct to call it a shrine, was built between 685 and 691. Okay, it's not as pretty as it is now. That's later on. The original dome collapsed in 1015, an earthquake. It's been damaged a number of times by earthquakes. And it was rebuilt in 1022 to 1023. Okay, so it is a shrine. Early on in the 19th century, it was considered a shrine to the Jewish temple. There used to be pamphlets for that around. I've seen one in a video, but I've never seen one in person. There may be out there someplace that you can find them where it actually advertised it as a shrine to the Hebrew temple. It was a landmark that they could make money off of. Come visit. Someone later on got the idea that they could turn it into a tool to keep the Jews from rebuilding the temple, and that's what they've done. The gold dome, the dome was there, but the gold wasn't there until around, what was that, 1959, I think it was. Saudi Arabia contributed the gold for that. But the dome before that was, it was used by the Crusaders until they were captured in 1187. Okay, so it hasn't been one continuous thing. After the Crusaders, when Saladin took it over, it kind of stayed in their hands then from the rest of the time. Okay. Again, there's really no long-term claim to this by the Muslims. Their claim is a lie. Okay. The mosaics and everything that were added onto it later on, we're trying to copy the Byzantine churches that were in the area at the time. It's pretty much stayed this way during the Ottoman period and modern period. Again, the gold was put on it in 1959, and then another layer and more gold was added in 1993. And that's kind of how we have it now. Inside this shrine, which we're not allowed to go into, is a rock which is supposed to be the rock where Abraham was going to sacrifice Isaac. A lot of this has been damaged because during the time that it was open, pilgrims would come inside this shrine and chip away pieces of that rock. And so it doesn't look like what it used to look like. Unfortunately, it was damaged. The third temple is going to have to go there. The problem is because of all the propaganda lies that Satan has spread through his people, the Arabs, well, the Muslims. Anyone who believes that the Ayatollahs are right in Iran and that the whole world has to be under the thumb of their God, anybody who believes that, they're going to hell in a handbasket because that's not the God of the world. God of the world loves people and tells us to hate our enemies. They tell us to kill their enemies. All right. So we know where the temple's supposed to be. It's not being built. Why? Because of all the propaganda, it would literally lead to World War III. Even those that aren't directly involved in the false belief would still join forces. It's going to take somebody who can bring peace between the Israelis and the Muslims to be able to build the temple. Now, the Temple Institute wants to build it right now. They want to just come over there, take over the top of it, say, let's go ahead and start this war. Let's get it over with. God's going to protect us. The Orthodox Jews tell them, no, we can't do it that way. We believe that the Messiah is going to be responsible for building the temple. Okay, there's a twist in this because they don't believe the Messiah has been here. When the Antichrist shows up, these Orthodox Jews are going to welcome him with open arms. And he's going to say, well, I'm going to sign a 7-year peace treaty with all you people around here. Yeah. And they're going to believe it because they're going to believe the Antichrist. He's so good that he could almost fool the elect. Almost. But we won't be here. We'll be gone. So there's no one to call him out. There may be a few, but they won't last long. So he's going to give him a 7-year peace treaty, say goodbye to the Dome of the Rock. In goes the third temple. And they will do their sacrifices. They're ready now. They've been practicing sacrifices. They have the Sanhedrin. The Temple Institute has done all that part. They got everything that goes in it. They're just jumping the gun on when it's going to get built. But we know it has to be built with enough time to be using it by the midway point of the 70th week of Daniel. That's when the Antichrist will defile the temple and stop the sacrifices. So they have to be going. If it takes them a year or two to build it and get it up and running fully, they could probably be doing something right away. We're told in Revelation, don't worry about the outer court. The outer court's going to be trampled on by the Gentiles. Just get the Holy of Holies and the inner court built. And so they don't have as much to build as the original temple. They've already got their plans. They probably have the stone. The red heifers, they've got some to choose from now. It may be another one that we don't know about yet. God will supply it. That's always been his job, to supply the red heifer. But we're going to get one coming soon. All this means that we as a church have to be gone before that can happen. Now, we're looking at these wars possibly coming up. We don't know about the Magog War. We thought it might be in the beginning, but it also could be any time after the midway point. We've got Psalm 83, we've got Jeremiah, we've got a number of the prophets. In fact, everything in the prophets is basically, that's talking about prophecy, is pointing to now. But we don't know from now until the end when these things happen. We don't know when Elam's going to get destroyed, when Damascus is going to be destroyed. Is that in the beginning or is that in the end? I heard some really good arguments about the 2 witnesses and the 144,000 being in the second half. So once again, we don't know the timing. The only thing we know for sure is that we have to be out of here before the Antichrist can do his reign. Now, he's here as a human doing his reign now, and he's probably part of the coalition that's doing our one world government. But he's not, just like Hitler was nothing in the beginning. We don't have any early records of him. We don't know about his speeches. He was nothing until he was demon possessed and became the little a Antichrist for that generation. The same thing with our current Antichrist. He's nothing other than, he may be influential in the world, well known. He's going to have some connections to be able to step into this and mediate it. But until he gets the demon, he won't have that world authority handed to him. It's got to be soon. We're coming up on Easter. I've always said before, the end of the church age will not end on a Jewish holiday. But the 70th week can begin on a Jewish holiday because they're turning back on the Jewish calendar. But we're in the church age. We're not in the Jewish age. But coming up in a week, a few days after that, we have Easter. Easter is right in the middle of Passover. So we have a Jewish holiday and Passover. That would be a good high watch time. But it can be any time. So you have to be ready. We don't know when. I'm not telling you that's the date, but I am telling you it's a high watch time. And any time between now and Passover would be a high watch time, because if they want to turn the clock forward to the 70th week on Passover, then we have to be out of here. So be ready. We're not going to go to war over the Temple Mount. And God, when he comes back to the temple, in whatever shape it's in, he's going to go through the eastern gate, which has been brick solid. And they put a cemetery right outside the wall so that Christ won't walk through the cemetery to get in the east gate. You think that's going to stop him? We're talking God here. Nice little earthquake, part the cemetery, and the actual ground that he's going to be walking on is going to be down below that at the temple level, entrance to the temple. The gate's well below the cemetery. So he could part that, open up the wall, go right in. You can't stop God by doing earthly things. That's how silly these people are. That's how silly Satan is. Foolish, stupid, and silly. Okay. We may not see any of this. Because if it's going to take the Antichrist, I didn't realize I dropped down so much. If it's going to take the Antichrist to eliminate, where am I? There. To eliminate the Dome of the Rock, which inside, like I said, has 12 pillars. It's a shrine to the temple. Stop lying, Satan. Stop lying, friends of Satan. That's going to go away. Who's going to get the gold? That ought to go to Israel. Now, when they build the temple, are they going to have the ark? We don't know. We know the temple is not going to help them reach God. The original one was destroyed for a reason. But if it helps to unite them, and the 144 are going to have a united group of Jews, of Israelis to be able to talk to witness to, in the temple if they want. Talk about Jesus. And we're going to get our two witnesses up there. And they're going to talk about it too. And they're going to show the signs and wonders that go with the two witnesses. Or are the same two that witnessed the transfiguration? Good possibility. They're witnesses. They're good at it. There's a lot of really cool stuff coming that have to do with God and the Jews and his town, Jerusalem. There's a lot of bad stuff coming too, but we got a lot of good stuff first. Pray for people. They need it. Get out, like I did in my last video, which I should have done what I'm doing now and just stayed inside. I've got the heater here on my feet. That's why I can have my jacket off. It's cold. I don't know what the temperature is. Let's see, what's the temperature right now? It's 2 o'clock and the temperature is 38 at 2 o'clock. It's cold. And there's a wind blowing that is 16 miles an hour average. Peaks, I'm sure, are above that. It is cold. First day of spring is cold. Come on, all you people who are into global warming, you're letting us down. You should be doing something about this. We should be warmed up. Okay. Yeah, I know they can't do anything about it, and there is no global warming, but I gotta end this on a funny note. Okay. That dome is going to go away, and there's going to be a temple there. And you're going to see from where we're looking how grand the temple can be. And you can see at the bottom, where's my finger? At the bottom below the temple, you can see graves. All along that wall, there are graves where they put people to keep Jesus from coming in. There's graves on other sides of it, but the eastern side is where we're looking at. And if you remember the history of the tabernacle, back when they were in the desert, it also pointed east. And the way the people were camped on either side, north and south of the temple, the tabernacle, and over here, there's some to the north, but most of them were to the east. So you basically had a cross. God never misses a beat. All right. I don't know how long I've been talking. My videos seem to have gotten shorter of late. I need to start planning more. I've been spending so much of my time driving to places where I could sit and upload videos that I haven't done as much planning. Well, God said, now that I have my Starlink, there's no excuses. Do a better job producing your videos. Cover enough. I can do, now, I don't think people would sit through it, but I could do an hour-long video. My plan is to do a video similar to this for YouTube, and then do a follow-up video that will be on Rumble only. This will be part A here on YouTube, and then part B will be over on Rumble. If you want to see the complete message, you will have to go to Rumble. And I've also got to start doing some videos for our Patreon subscribers. I've owed you that for a long time. I just didn't have the bandwidth. So now I can do that. I'm going to try to do some of that. I may get a chance to start when it warms up. Tomorrow begins the warm up. And from then on, I don't have any excuses. And as long as I can do this inside, I can keep making videos with the heater pointed directly at me. And I've got two heaters, one on each side. It's that cold. And I'm going to put my jacket on top of that when I'm done with this video. Okay, no excuses. God will provide all you need. Hear that wind? The tent, the walls are going back and forth. Satan's trying to be heard, but he's just a big blowhard. That's all he is. Yep. Okay, until we meet in the skies. God bless.